Hi, my name is Jocelyn Weber, and I am presenting a project for AEP 880, which is cultural diversity. And today I'll be theoretically presenting to my coworkers, the staff at Daegu Catholic University. Hi guys, today we're going to talk about student diversity. Now, I know many of you guys say diversity. What diversity? We live in Korea, where the population of our students is mostly Korean. Korea is a really homogenous community culturally, and you don't think diversity exists. But actually, there's quite a bit of diversity in our students. Think about things like there's different gender. Now, you've probably noticed that the boys and girls have different preferences in the activities that you put together or different learning styles. Usually they don't like to work together. There's also different religions in our students. Now, some of the students are Catholic, but being Catholic is not required to attend this Catholic university. And in fact, many of our students are not Catholic. You've probably seen the Muslim students walking around on campus. A lot of the international students that just want a more conservative university setting go to Daegu Catholic University. Also, a lot of our students are Christian but not Catholic, and a fair number are Buddhist. A lot of them are just not religious at all, but we should treat them all the same within our classes. Now, another big difference with our students is socioeconomic status. And you can all tell who the wealthy students were, right? How? They went to Hagwons. This is a private after-school academy that's extra private lessons for English. So they come in with exceptional English speaking and listening skills. So I think in order to make our classes more fair for the students that have low socioeconomic families that didn't have the chance for all the extra tutoring after school, that we need to be thinking not about where is their English level and grading them on the higher level gets an A, but instead we should think about how much did they improve over the course of the semester. So this is what we're going to talk about today, is the socioeconomic differences in our students. Now, I've found through an action research project that I did for another class that the urban students, the kids who are the big city kids from Daegu, Seoul, and Busan, they tend to be wealthier. And we all know that all the kids want to move to Seoul. All the families want to move into the city. So if a family can afford to move into the city, they do. This means that the cities are wealthier. Now, the cities are an MOE where the provinces are a POE, so they have separate governments, and this means separate government funding. And because all of the wealthy families move into the cities, that's where all the tax revenue comes. The taxes are much higher in the cities, and that means that they have a lot more budgets for things like education. The curriculum decisions made at the schools are different, and my husband teaches at both rural and city schools, and the city curriculum is a lot harder. The teachers that are employed within the cities are always kept within the city, and they don't cross with the teachers that are employed in the country. So if you're a country teacher, you teach in the country. If you're a city teacher, you only teach in the city, and they tend to have a lot higher requirements because there's so much competition to get a job in the city. They also have a lot more Hagwons. In the city, there are numerous competitive Hagwons, and they even provide transportation. If you live in a city, there's a van, a yellow van, that will come to your door and pick you up and take you to the lessons and then take you home. Where if you live in the country, that's just not an option. So the action research project that I did talked about what's different for country kids. The country kids come from Yeongcheon, Gumi, and just the border towns around the big cities. And I found that when I looked at attendance, 100% of the attendance failures were students from big cities. And this means that no student failed because of attendance who was from a rural city. But 100% of the performance failures were students from rural high schools. So the reason why the city kids were failing was because they just didn't show up. They didn't care enough to show up. But the reason why the kids from the countryside were failing was because they didn't have the skills necessary to pass. The country kids scored lowest on their technical speaking abilities, their pronunciation, the grammar scores, but they scored the highest on participation, attendance, and their effort and preparation. So how can we make this more fair for the country kids who didn't get a chance to go to Hagwon? Well, it's called differentiating instruction. So there's two kinds of things we can differentiate. We can differentiate the instruction that we give, and we can differentiate the assessments. So country kids report difficulty in understanding teacher speech. They don't have the listening skills that the city kids have. So as teachers, we need to slow down and repeat often. We also have to allow practice activities with varying levels of difficulty, or what I like to do is offer two tasks, one that is required for everyone, and this is what I'll grade on, and then a second task that's optional just for the people who have finished quickly, to give them something to do while the other guys finish up. I also think it's a great idea to separate the kids into groups by level and then give them a little bit different activity to work on that's appropriately challenging for their level. And the biggest thing that I do is differentiating my assessments. Now, I want to give everybody a chance to get an A, regardless of if they went to a Hagwon or not. So I add elements into my grading rubric for effort and for improvement. And I also choose topics. I give the difficult kids more difficult topics. And I require them to do grammar that's more difficult. A lot of times I'll ask them to do presentations in the past tense about a vacation that they took last year or their life in high school, where I'll give the easier presentation topics like my hobby to the beginner students. So there's many things that we can do to make this situation more fair. And I think it starts with awareness. Knowing that it's a problem and working on finding a solution is the key. All right, thanks for listening to my presentation.